ELU Gaming.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Kerbal Space Program thing that I'm doing. So our current career mode is essentially dictating that the next objective is to fly by the moon. At this point, I do have the parts to easily go to the moon and land on it, but we're going to take it a little slow just because we don't necessarily have to, as dictated by the contracts, but we have plenty of the tech tree unlocked. We're more than ready, more than capable of getting there. So what I'm doing here is just setting up a craft that can easily fly by the moon, and I'm going to make sure that I can do as much science along the way. So things that we've already done are a goo canister in lower upper atmosphere and in space near Kerbin. So in doing a flyby of the moon, we can potentially now do high above Kerbin, high above the moon, and near the moon for the goo canister. So we're going to do another 3 of the goo canisters, and then of course temperature and pressure are repeatable. We now have batteries and solar panels, so we're going to throw those on there, and we're going to have an antenna so we can transmit like a crew report or something, because I actually have a second contract that requires transmitting or recovering science data from space around Kerbin, something like that. It's pretty simple. If I remember correctly, I may have to update this as we get further into the video, but I think as I complete that transmission contract thing, I have to go back to the mission control and try to get another contract, something like that. But yeah, so I'm just testing out a design here and playing with the Del V, trying to make sure it's somewhere around 5,000 or 5,500. It seems like that would be more than adequate. There's only one hiccup along the way, and I'll point that out as we come to it. It's a little bit unfortunate. We're going to have another rocket with a Reliant engine, but this time we have tail fins that have control fins, so or control surfaces, which will allow it to vector or gimbal. Will vector over a little bit better, so we can do a more appropriate gravity turn. So I'm going to do a little bit of my pre-launch setup, get some menus up so I can do stuff, and then we're on our way. So yeah, I don't have auto strut, so these SRBs on the side are maybe going to be a little bit wobbly and maybe bend and vector a little bit strangely, so that might cause the craft to lose a little bit of control. It also doesn't have nose cones on those things because part limit was starting to become a concern. But the tail fins with the control surfaces are definitely helping do a more appropriate gravity turn right now. But by and large, this launch is going okay. You'll notice since I used Jeb this time, he's not quite as experienced as Valentina is. So I don't have the prograde control node to lock on, which helps the gravity turn. That helps just kind of like let gravity do its work. That's basically what a gravity turn is. So we're exiting the atmosphere here, about to do the insertion burn. That's always great. Let's see here, about just under 2,000 Del V. That's great. So the one mistake I make here is that I time warp a little bit too far before performing this transit burn here. So it ends up making me arrive at the moon's orbit a bit late. I still get an encounter, but it's a bit late, so the interaction, the gravity interaction, ends up sending me off. It's not a free return it's not a free return trajectory orbit like I had hoped. So what I did there is I just took a temperature or atmospheric pressure reading and transmitted it to complete the one contract that I needed to do. So now I need to fly by the moon. The one thing I unfortunately did not do is I did not put a materials bay on this craft, because I mean that would have just been more science, and I absolutely could have put it on there. But I guess the one downside there is that I have Jeb, a pilot, and not a scientist, so it wouldn't have been repeatable. So I would have only gotten so much science for it. So maybe it's not the end of the world, but as I said, I'm doing as much science as I can. The biomes I'm reaching now that I didn't reach before are high above Kerbin, and then high above the moon and very near to the moon. And when I get near to the moon, there are some biome-specific things that I can do for EVAs. I think I only get a couple, though. So here I'm just, I'm doing my best to try to get a free return trajectory, and I realize it's not going to be possible, and that the best thing I can do is just slow the craft down at periapsis while interacting with the moon. Which, speaking of which, we're now in the sphere of influence of gravity of the moon now, so we're within the moon region. Time to do lunar science. So that means doing another goo canister and doing temperature and pressure, and sending Jeb out for an EVA, which is always hilarious because every time Jeb goes out for EVA, his helmet hits the solar panel above him and it starts the craft tumbling because SAS is disengaged, so it creates this funny little spin. And I also take another crew report. The nice thing here is that I finally have an antenna, or at least I remembered to put an antenna on it this time, so I could transmit the crew report and get repeated crew reports. So right now I'm kind of debating whether or not I should use, what is it? The transfer window mod? I think that's the one that allows me to do the auto warp, because technically I'm not supposed to be able to auto warp right now based off of what I have in the game. So there was a moral decision to make there about whether or not that was okay. And more science. I'm now in the biome of Midlands, and I'm kind of trying to do as much as I can, get that done, and then get out and do an EVA to get the Midlands EVA. And then I think I just try a couple more times to get EVA reports in other biomes. I don't really pass over too many different ones. I think the Twin Craters, and I miss Lowlands or something like that. Lowlands and Highlands, I think I miss them. And also something happened here. I remember forgetting to transmit or take a crew report or something while I had a comm link. So there was an opportunity to get more science here that I missed out on. There you go. There's my little slowdown at periapsis, and that's what I did. I got too eager about getting out of the moon influence and getting back that I forgot to do some science and got upset about that. But I exit influence of the moon, and then I burn retrograde, which of course is going to put me back into an encounter with the moon, but I can still get the periapsis down into the atmosphere. So I approach and burn off the excess fuel just to slow myself down, make re-entry a little bit easier, and prepare for just that, re-entry. So I time warp on in, and as I enter the atmosphere, it's an opportunity for me to do a little bit more science. I think I just double-checked to make sure that I didn't miss anything as soon as I've entered the atmosphere. Of course, I got 10,000 meters into the atmosphere before I realized I should do that. And I slowly do this, and then I start to get some re-entry heat. And it's time to jettison that lower stage and expose the heat shield and prepare for all the heat. So long story short, the re-entry goes smoothly, and the heat shield does its job protecting all the instruments, and I check for science the whole way down and make sure I'm not forgetting anything, because that'll always happen. The chutes deploy just fine, which slows the craft down enough for me to EVA and grab some science off some instruments. We just sort of prepare for splashdown, and splashdown goes well. So that's it. This mission is complete. We've done everything we can. I think I hop out here for a quick check of EVA and surface sample. Actually, no, I don't have surface sample available yet. So there we go. All set. Good to go. So that'll do it for this episode. And when you guys join me for the next episode, the primary mission is going to be heading to the moon and landing on the surface and transmitting and recovering some data from there. Everything you see here is me just collecting contracts, upgrading buildings, and filling out the tech tree for that very thing, going to the moon. So I'll see you guys next time.